All right, so let's dive right into this, shall we? We got a tier list, and I gotta say, it's one of the more unsettling ones we've tackled. We're talking about a malicious god,
Hmm.
not just flawed, but truly intentionally malicious.
Yeah, this one's definitely got some teeth to it. I mean, the idea of flawed deities is something that comes up a lot, right?
Uh-huh.
But straight up malice from a being that's supposed to represent ultimate good, well, it forces you to confront some pretty uncomfortable stuff. Power, faith, what it even means to exist, you know?
It's like holding up this like dark mirror to everything we think we know about, well, everything. And what I find so fascinating about this particular tier list is how it's structured. It's like we're slowly zooming in on that dark mirror, each tier more intense than the last. And we're starting with, well, I wouldn't say it's relatable, but the C tier definitely plays on some very primal fears.
Oh, absolutely. This tier digs into those deep, ancient anxieties that have always been with us. Disease, the sheer overwhelming power of nature. I mean, those are things we can all connect with on some level. But then imagine those things aren't random, they're intentional. The deliberate actions of a God who wants us to suffer.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, if everyday life was designed to be this brutal, if suffering was the default setting, would we even recognize hope? Would we be hardwired to just expect the worst, always waiting for the next bad thing to happen?
It really makes you think about the nature of faith, too. Like, in a world completely devoid of hope, would faith be even stronger? This desperate cling to belief is the only source of comfort. Or would it be the opposite? Would it just wither away under the weight of so much suffering?
And keep in mind, that's just the C tier, the entry-level stuff. Things get way, way more unsettling from here, folks. Because when we move into the B tier, it's not just about suffering anymore, it's about the malice being so much more personal. Targeted, even.
Yeah, this is where the cruelty starts to feel deliberate, you know?
Yes.
Like the tier list mentions false hope religions, and that one really gets under your skin. Imagine devoting your life to a belief system, only to find out that God set the whole thing up as a cosmic joke.
Don't even get me started on that one. It's like ultimate betrayal. If sincere belief can be so utterly meaningless, what does that say about our search for meaning? About purpose?
And then you've got resurrection roulette, which is just, I mean, talk about a nightmare. Death is bad enough, right? But imagine instead of some kind of release, some kind of peace, it's just a reset button. You die and you're reborn just to relive all your worst moments again and again and again.
It really makes you question the whole concept of an afterlife, doesn't it? Like, what's the point of a supposed reward if it's just an endless loop of your worst nightmares? It's just cruel. There's no other word for it.
And it really makes you question the whole free will thing, doesn't it? I mean, if you've got this malicious deity pulling the strings, making us dance to its tune, how much choice do we really have? Are we really in control of our lives, or are we just puppets?
It's a chilling thought, yeah. I mean, we're already talking about a universe where suffering is just baked in, right? But then to think it's all part of some sick game, that our pain is intentional, orchestrated, ugh, it makes you wonder if there even is a point to it all, you know?
And yet I kind of think that even in that kind of reality, even facing that kind of bleakness, people would still try to find meaning. That's what we do, right? We look for patterns, we try to make sense of things. I bet in a B-tier world, finding joy, finding connection, any kind of connection, would be the ultimate act of rebellion.
A rebellion against, like, existence itself. Talk about your uphill battles. But you know what they say? It can always get weirder. And in this case, it definitely does. Because now we're moving into the A tier where this malicious divinity isn't just messing with our heads, it's messing with reality itself.
Right, this is where things go from bad to, well, what even is this? It's like, imagine a world where the laws of physics are more like guidelines, where gravity just takes a break at the worst possible moment, or time gets all wibbly-wobbly.
So instead of a bad day, you could have a bad day where you're suddenly stuck to the ceiling because gravity decided to reverse. Or you're late for work, not because of traffic, but because time decided to slow down on your commute.
Exactly. Like, how do you even begin to wrap your head around that? This constant uncertainty, this feeling that the universe could just glitch out at any second. Imagine trying to build a life, a society, anything on that kind of foundation.
It'd be like trying to build a house of cards on a roller coaster. And speaking of unsettling, we haven't even gotten to moral inversion yet. Now that one really messed me up.
Oh yeah, moral inversion. Talk about a mind trip. It's like, what is good, what is evil? In this tier, who even knows? Imagine a world where doing something kind gets you punished and doing something awful gets you rewarded.
Like helping an old lady cross the street ends in disaster, and robbing a bank somehow makes the world a better place. It's like the universe is playing some kind of cruel joke, and our moral compass is just spinning wildly.
It throws the whole concept of morality out the window, right? Like, if good and evil are just arbitrary labels decided by a malicious God who's playing dice with the universe, what does that even mean for our sense of justice, of right and wrong?
It's enough to make your head spin. And just in case your sense of self wasn't already sufficiently shaken, we get to identity breakdown.
Ah, yes, the old identity switcheroo. Imagine waking up every day with your memories scrambled, your personality different. Who you are one day is a stranger the next.
It's like living in a constant state of existential whiplash, right? Our memories, our experiences, they make us who we are. To have those things constantly in flux would be terrifying.
And talk about throwing a wrench into relationships. How do you build trust, intimacy, any of that when you don't even know who you are from one day to the next?
Makes you just want to curl up in a ball and wait for the cosmic reset button, you know? But that's assuming there's any escaping this malicious deity's game. And from what I'm seeing in the next tier.
The S tier.
The S tier. Well, let's just say it makes everything we've talked about so far seem like, I don't know, a walk in the park. It's like the difference between a paper cut and having reality itself ripped apart.
Yeah, the S tier. This is where we really start bumping up against the limits of what we can even imagine. The malice here is just, it's on another level, almost incomprehensible.
It's like we were talking about a hurricane before, right? This is like the total and complete disintegration of the atmosphere. Game over for, well, everything.
And the thing is, in this tier, game over doesn't just mean one planet or even one universe. Your list mentions universes exploding on a whim, and that's a level of, I don't even know, indifference maybe. That's just, wow.
It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? We talk about suffering on a human scale, right? Plagues, natural disasters, those are things we understand, at least on some level. But a deity that just wipes out entire realities because it's bored, that's something else entirely.
It's hard to even process, right? Like, how do you wrap your mind around that kind of power, that kind of motivation? It really shows you the limits of human understanding, I think.
Totally. And it's not just the scale of it either. There's this entry on the list, dimensions of custom designed torture, and it just, I don't know, it gets under your skin in a different way. Like, creativity is horrifying enough, but the fact that something that powerful would even care to inflict that kind of personalized suffering.
It's almost more disturbing than the casual universe destroying stuff, in a way. It's like, on the one hand, you've got this being that can obliterate galaxies without a second thought, and on the other hand, it's meticulously crafting these incredibly specific, personalized forms of torture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like what kind of mind even does that? It's like that thing, you know, where you hear about serial killers keeping these meticulous diaries about their victims. The scope might be different here, but there's that same kind of unsettling fascination, that need to control and manipulate.
And it makes you wonder, what's driving that? Is it just a case of absolute power corrupting absolutely? Or is there something else going on here, something we can't even begin to understand?
And then, of course, we get to what you called the beyond broken tier, which isn't even really a tier on the list so much as the point where the whole thing just kind of breaks down.
This is where we cross over into like true cosmic horror territory. Reality itself is unstable, subject to the whims of, well, something. And suffering isn't an accident, it's not a byproduct, it's the fundamental nature of existence. It's enough to make you question everything, you know, even sanity itself.
Because if whatever created this reality is that powerful, if it can just rewrite the rules on a whim, what hope do we have of ever understanding it, of ever escaping it?
Big questions, right? I mean, people have been wrestling with the problem of suffering for centuries, trying to square that circle with the idea of a benevolent creator. But this beyond broken tier, it takes us past easy answers, past comforting stories. It forces us to confront the possibility that maybe there are some questions that just don't have answers. At least not answers we can understand.
So where does that leave us? I mean, we just spent this whole time staring into the abyss of, well, a malicious universe. How do we even begin to process that?
Maybe by recognizing that even thinking about this stuff, even imagining these possibilities, it means something. It means we still care about understanding, about finding meaning, even in the face of the most unsettling, the most terrifying ideas.
So maybe it's not about despair. Maybe it's about finding hope in the fact that we can ask these questions in the first place.
Exactly. We might be a small part of something much, much bigger, something we may never fully grasp, but we're still here, still asking why, still searching for something more, And that's got to count for something, right?
I'd like to think so. Well, on that uplifting note, I think it's time for all of us to take a deep breath, maybe hug a loved one, and remember that even in the darkest timelines, there's always something worth fighting for. Thanks for joining us for this particularly intense deep dive. We'll be back next time with hopefully a slightly less terrifying topic. Until then, keep exploring, keep asking those big questions, and keep looking for those glimmers of hope in the darkness.